We've got 6 watching now, so I'm glad everyone was able to find the new stream. Hi guys, I guess this is good enough. Welcome to our second live stream. We're here in the Ryokan, which is the house that we're living in here, not the guest house. We're just around the corner. And this is the room that I've been collecting and sorting all of the dishes. So we're calling this the dish room. And
well, if you just watched Danny's recent video on the archaeology of the house, I think we figured out that this was the original kitchen. It's sort of a, I don't know, it's kind of a strange floor plan, but the main house, the main hall, like the main big room that comprises the majority of the house, was accompanied by this smaller room, which was a kitchen, and that was basically the entire layout back in 1940 when it was built. And over in the corner off camera, there's a space where the burners were for the stove. And when they remodeled the house in 1955 to turn it into a ryokan, they built a whole giant kitchen. So, we call this the second kitchen. I think, since we want to do the whole homesteading deal with canning and blah blah blah, we're just basically going to use this as an extension of our kitchen, or call it a pantry or something like that.
yeah, right now we're sitting on a raised tatami platform, so half the room is a tile kitchen floor and half the room is a raised tatami platform. So shortly after we moved in, we walked through the house with the niece of the former owner, who's now an elderly lady, and she lives in the neighborhood here. And she goes for walks just about every day, and so we actually just met her walking down the street, and she said, hey, yeah, my uncle was the owner of that house, in Japanese, of course. She was talking to Evan, and Evan was translating. And so we brought her in to see the house, and she just kept saying Natsukashi, which is nostalgic, and just saying that everything looked exactly as she remembered it when she was a child. And here on this platform where we're sitting was one of those little low tatami tables with the cooking, what are those tables called?
I don't know. Just a table with a burner set into the middle of it.
Well, there's a word for it, but and she saw that table and she told us which position she always sat at the table. So that's where we are right now for this stream. So
this is like the family dining room.
So we're here. The purpose of this stream today is just to chat with everyone. We've had a couple of big, more milestones reached recently. So the biggest one is that we got our visa extension. So this is our, let's see, so we arrived as tourists, then we received the startup business visa for 6 months. After that, we received the first business manager visa for 1 year, and we're just about to reach the end of that. It actually goes until Christmas is our change date for the visa. So we just received our extension for 1 further year after Christmas. So we have our business manager visa here in Japan until approximately Christmas 2025. So that's big news. And we were hoping for 3 years, but we got 1 year, and our immigration lawyer explained that that's fairly common. They tend to just sort of give you, he said they always give you 1 year to start, and then at your first renewal, then it's really based on business success and how things have been going in that first year. So we hoped for 3 years, but we're not, they of course they don't give you any feedback as to why we got 1 year instead of 3 years or 5 years, which is the ultimate goal. That would be incredible. But we are happy, and we're here for at least another year. So we'll be working towards our next immigration renewal. We'll sort of be working on that continually throughout the year, just keeping things prepped and planned for that. So we do work pretty closely with our immigration lawyer. we planned to have monthly team meetings with our immigration lawyer and our local business consultant and our accountant. So everybody that we're working with is sort of just keeping a really close eye on things. So when it comes up for the next visa renewal, it shouldn't be overly complicated. Then the other big thing that we've done recently is we reached our YouTube monetization level, which is awesome. You know, we've said all along that we just really enjoy YouTube. We like making the videos. This is only our second live stream, but the first one was pretty fun. We had a lot of questions and a lot of interactions. So we don't expect YouTube to ever be like a major income source, but we want this to be a major part of our homesteading and our life here, just to sort of share the process. Evan's always talked about doing educational videos as far as farming and soil health and making biochar and sort of the scientific aspect and doing experiments growing vegetables in different soil scenarios and that sort of thing. So that was sort of our initial goal, and then we realized when we started this visa process how little information is out there for actually doing the startup visa and the business manager visa in Japan. Bosco has something to say too. So that's sort of, for now, our focus is sort of shifted towards making videos about the renovation and the real estate. I'm going to have to go put him in the room, so Evan, you can take over for a sec. I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah, and I would like to know from the people down below, you know, we started off like a lot of people did, just watching, you know, instead of watching TV, we'd be watching homesteading videos, you know, back in the States. And that's where our original interest lay, and so we've been making more of these like slice of life videos and talking about the immigration process, which has been you know, popular and useful, and of course that's entertaining as it is. But let me know if what you want to see about farming and things like that. I got a lot of wacky theories that I can get into, and you know, that's my focus, is really sort of the intellectual side of things, like critiquing permaculture and some of those ideas, and yeah, soil science, as Danny mentioned. Yeah, I'm not sure how to bridge that. Not sure how to bring that into the channel identity. Like if we should keep doing that here, or if we should make another like science-based channel, something like that.
For the soil science, no, I think it fits perfectly. You know, the channel is Benton Homestead, even though you know, we've only touched on the bees, and we've just sort of started about talking. Getting our fields going from the abandoned land, so I definitely think that fits with our channel identity for the future, because I like that our channel is sort of a mix of topics. You know, we'll go from immigration to real estate, you know, how do the taxes work, to back to sorting through antiques, to renovations and life in Japan. I think that, at least for me, like as the person making these videos, that keeps it interesting and fun, and I think it sort of attracts maybe a wider audience. So, you know, we don't expect most of you to be interested in every single one of our topics, but if we have a video come out about every week, we don't have a set strict schedule or anything, but it seems to be working pretty well to cover the different topics. So let me know if you think that's true as well. If you like the different topics that we cover, or if there's additional topics you'd like, or maybe some topics that you're less interested in. We're always interested to see that.
Well, an issue though with covering a lot of the science is controversial, right? And so we want to keep this channel, you know, PG. And just, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to turn off any listeners or viewers by talking about some of the
The soil stuff?
Yeah, a lot of the soil science is bogus. I mean, I could blow people's minds in like 5 seconds here, and I'm not going to. You know, you look at the origins of even organic farming, where that's coming from. You look at the origins of the word holism or holistic. That's a real big pet peeve of mine. And Jan Smuts, you look into that guy. If you knew who Jan Smuts is, you wouldn't use the word holistic. I promise you. But yeah, that's just one little topic that I'm wondering if I should, talk about on this channel, or if we should make something else, make another venue for that.
Well, maybe we've got some questions coming in, so let's take a look at those. And we actually have a few from the Instagram too, so I let people, I put a story up yesterday to ask for additional questions on our Instagram, so we'll get to those too. Maybe we can jump right in. Oh, but first I wanted to say, so we're learning about how the YouTube monetization works, and there's some tools that just got opened up to us that we didn't have before. And so with the monetization of live streams, I was reading how that works, and I actually chose not to monetize this video that we're watching right now because as I was reading YouTube's description of, do you want to or not monetize your live streams, it seemed like a really annoying and bad idea to monetize the live streams because the way they explained that it works is that every individual person viewing the live stream would have an ad shown to them at a random time, and it wouldn't notify us that someone had an ad playing over the video.
So you'd be talking, and you have no idea that you're not being
Yeah,
seen.
so they'd lose like 30 seconds to a minute of the live stream, and that's just sounded super annoying to me. Like, what if I was answering someone's specific question and then an ad popped up? So I don't want to deal with that. I don't actually like, the ads for that reason. So we didn't monetize this live stream. We do have the option of super chats, which again, we're sort of new to how the YouTube thing works. I haven't watched a lot of live videos before. I guess a super chat is basically just a donation in order for your chat to pop up and be more obvious. But that's not required by any means. We're here because we want to be here, and we're hosting just this question and answer time, and we're going to try and answer everybody's question regardless. So let's see. So Terry's still here. Hi, Terry. And Vivian says, greetings from Rio de Janeiro. I'm glad you're concerned about preserving the character of this beautiful old house. I won't miss the next episodes. Thank you. That's nice to hear. We the renovation for the guest house was primarily to restore it to what it once was. And that's for the whole house, just with a few modern amenities. So heating is a little more comfortable for our guests. Heating and cooling is most of the modern things that we added, and the rest was restoring it to its original. That house was built in 1953. This house here, Evan has some plans for a bit of a more modern design for the kitchen and dining room, and then the rest of the house will be primarily back to the traditional construction. And this house was built in 1940. So we have a little bit more of a small amount of some modern design in this house. It's probably going to be like 70-30 or so.
And I think you might be a little more open to doing some radical changes now that you've done this this look into the past of our house. And
sort of, yeah. I was hesitant at first. Evan would like an open kitchen plan, and I was hesitant to take out any walls or anything like that. But
you wanted to keep the historical character of the house, and the fact of the matter is the historical character, as it were, only lasted for about 15 years, and then it's had a lot of renovations. So
yeah, if you watched our last video going through the house, we've got a lot of our interior walls are formerly exterior walls. So the house has changed dramatically from 1940, when it was built, to the first renovations in 1955. So yeah, we've had a lot of conversations about, well, what does restoring it with historical accuracy mean when the house was built in 1940 and then remodeled drastically in 1955 and again pretty drastically in 1957. So
I mean, you can say they set a historical precedent for continued remodeling. I think. Can you say that?
that's true. Yeah, just sort of. And it's interesting that was also sort of the way that houses were expanded upon back in New Orleans too. We really enjoyed sort of a house would begin and then they would just add on and the word ramshackle comes to mind, but in an endearing way, not not in a not in any sort of negative way. It's just sort of cool that the houses just kept getting bigger and bigger, like they were its own creature, sort of. Let's see, we've got a couple other questions coming in. So, Aussie Accent Listening says, I started watching YouTube during lockdowns as an escape from all the bad news on TV. Because my most recent travel had been to Japan, I got into travel videos.
So that kind of speaks to what I was saying about how controversial do we want to get on this channel with the science aspects of it. And I mean, I can completely respect the idea of an escape, and keeping it lighthearted on this channel. I think C.S. Lewis had a great quote. I can't remember what exactly it was, but he just talked about how the idea of escape, he's writing fiction, and the idea of escape is really actually a noble thing given all the trials and tribulations that people have in their normal lives, not to mention, crazy global events.
But I do think that we're not just a fluffy channel, I try to keep things super positive and but I also don't want it to be only positive and gloss over, the difficulties and the challenges that we have living in Japan. Immigration and starting a business is difficult anywhere in the world. But people have a lot of questions, realistic questions about, how difficult is it being there with me, not knowing the language very well, what is the real life aspect of packing up from the US, starting over in a foreign country, and not just a foreign country that speaks a similar language, but just such a totally different foreign country on the complete other side of the world. So we get a lot of questions about what's it really like. So I do try to be as real as possible on this channel with our challenges.
And yeah, and another, well, I don't know how to get in. There's a guy, Marshall McLuhan was a sort of a philosopher. I've recently read a couple of his books, and he said he pioneered the field of media studies. He said so. He did his whole career. He started in advertising, and he's just writing about media. And he coined the phrase "the medium is the message," which is, a lot of people have probably heard that, but that means that basically it's instead of just the content, it's the way that the content is presented that has a huge impact on the way that people experience it. And he basically, one of his themes is that the medium, in this case like YouTube, it becomes an extension of our senses actually. So you're able to extend your eyeballs, instead of just seeing what's in front of you, you're able to extend your eyeballs all the way across the interwebs to Japan, and and just that's an example. And so what he did, the reason I got into reading him, was that he predicted the rise of YouTube in the 1960s. So he said that cable television would supersede broadcast television, and then the consumer becoming the producer is what you would see in the media. So this is what we're hearing this phrase like, we are the media, and we are we're every bit as valid as any TV news broadcaster, or maybe even more so. You happen to.
As begrudgingly as I am becoming a YouTube creator, my old professional career has been behind the camera, and that was on purpose. That was designed that way. I like to be behind the camera, but here we are, evolving.
Yeah, here we are. And I mean, so there's no gatekeepers anymore. I mean, there is, but we're, here we are.
So another question, so Terry says, I've been with you guys for quite a while. I got introduced to y'all through slow steading. Awesome. We love slow steading. I like everything you do, but my favorite content is your rescuing of the animals, but I will always watch. Yeah, so I have so much content around the street dogs, and I have been wanting to make at least 2 or 3 more videos regarding, catching the puppies and getting them to the dog rescue, and also just trying to domesticate Bosco, and even Pumpkin, being a being a totally feral cat when we got him. I've got all of this footage, and I can't make the video because I want it to be so good, and I love animals, and I love the fact that we moved here and had no idea that we were going to move into one of the very few parts of Japan that has all these street dogs. And I think I just have that footage like way too close to my heart. I want this video to be as amazing as possible, and my footage is just not that great. I want to tell this story, and I want to help promote the island dog rescue, so I tend to just sort of talk about it more in my Instagram stories than anywhere else. But I do have a lot of footage. We've now rescued 8 street dog puppies, one of which is Bosco, and one of which is Koro, who our neighbor adopted. And so that means that we have taken 6 street dog puppies to the Ōmishima dog rescue, and they are just amazing people. They work with Coco Sensei, the veterinarian on the island, and then they get the dogs to good homes. And it's just, like most of the businesses on this island, they are just a husband and wife, and they do everything themselves. So they do have a network of people who foster the puppies, but I believe the majority of them are at their coffee shop, where you can go drink coffee and look at their housewares and pet the puppies. And then they also have some puppies at their personal house, and then they have puppies in foster situations before they get permanently adopted. So they're just really incredible people, and they only started the rescue, I think, shortly before we got here, so they've probably been going for 2 or 3 years, maybe a little bit longer. But thanks for saying that. I've got a lot of footage, so maybe I will be able to get a video out covering the puppy rescues. Marcus showed up. Hi, Marcus. We knew you'd be here, so no question about that. Glad you made it. Lisa says, hello from Australia. We love watching your channel. It's great that you share information about visas, renovations, and farming. We look forward to seeing the restoration and farming ideas and progress. Thanks, Lisa. And she says, the dogs are so cute too. Japan is such a beautiful place, and the traditional houses are so lovely. So thanks for saying that. So that's answering our question about the various topics we cover. So it's good to know that at least Lisa likes visa, renovation, farming, and dog videos. So thank you for the feedback.
Trifecta.
Yes. So before I forget, we've got some Instagram questions, so maybe we can pop over to those real quick. We had one person ask us 3 questions from my story yesterday. I'm not super technologically inclined, so pardon me.
Scott Simpson says, hi guys.
Hi, Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so from Instagram stories, we've got 3 questions from Sally with the starfish profile. And she says, Danny, how have you found it making friends without speaking the language? So it's complicated. It's been difficult, and there's definitely been some times that I've felt really lonely. Uh, I have people are welcoming, and we can make friends really easily here. People are super nice, they're interested, they want to know why we want to live in Japan. This is a small island, everybody knows everybody. So we do make friends, but primarily my communication, if you can imagine, is through Evan. So when we're talking to people in person, he's translating for me. And I'm picking up little bits and pieces, and I understand like generally what the conversation is about. But if I have something to say, usually I ask Evan to translate for me. So a lot of the friends that I have made, we connect on Instagram, and then we send messages and can translate that way. So we either talk online or Instagram. Line is a chat, it's like a text app, and it does have an automatic translate feature. So some of our friends we talk to on that, and they write in Japanese and I write in English, and then Line automatically translates for each of us back and forth. So that's really cool. Instagram does not have an automatic translate feature. So the messages that I get from local friends on Instagram, I have to cut and paste and put that in a translation app and then translate my response and then cut and paste that back to Instagram. So you can imagine that it is a little bit challenging, and I feel like the automatic translations from English to Japanese are not great. Uh, they uh, there's one friend that I talk to online, and she speaks English too, but she writes in Japanese because it's quicker for her. And so then when Line automatically translates it, it makes mistakes all the time, and so then she's arguing with the Line translation bot and saying, no, that's not what I said, I meant this. So it's definitely challenging. I am making language studies my top priority for the winter. I don't know how much I'll be able to learn during our slow time. Immersion has not been working as quickly as I thought it would, but I am able to pick up sort of the general concept of the cadence of speaking and some words and that sort of thing, but I am definitely very limited in that regard. Her other questions are, how do your feelings about your homes here in Japan compare to your Louisiana homestead?
We just have so much more contact with our community members than we've ever had in the United States or Mexico. It's I mean, we live in a tiny village here basically. We lived in a tiny village in Mexico for 4 months, so we got a lot of that too. But I mean, part of it is my Japanese is a lot better than my Spanish, so and I don't know. I think part of it is just the fact that what we're doing is we didn't live in Mexico with the intention of saying we're going to settle there, But so yeah, when we come and meet someone and we say, "Hey, we're here. We're your new neighbors, and we're trying to do the right thing," I think that it's undeniable that it's yeah. I'm not going to say we're like saving the island, but we're here to do the right thing, and everyone is very happy to see us, or almost everyone. So it's just great.
Yeah.
And
So as far as, I don't know if her question is about the homes or the community specifically, but community here for sure. We have way more contact and regular contact and friendships with more of our neighbors here than we ever did in the US. I mean, I'm thinking back to like how many neighbors, the various places that we lived in the US, was I actually friends with? Probably not very many, not a ton. But it's definitely different here, and we have regular contact with the neighbors because we're outside working, and they walk dogs. All the older folks take their evening strolls around the neighborhood every night. So when we're out walking Bosco, we see the same neighbors every evening, and a lot of them want to stop and chat. So that's super nice. And if the question is directed to like the homes and how they're constructed and sort of the land, it's kind of a difficult comparison, I guess. The houses here are completely different, but our goal coming here was sort of to recreate and expand upon what we had in Louisiana with our urban farm. So if you're not familiar with that far back of our story, we spent 5 years in Louisiana. We had a duplex there. The houses in Louisiana are called shotgun houses. So they're two long, skinny houses sort of stuck up next to each other. And that's called a double shotgun house in Louisiana. You can look that up. It's a cool style. And we had a quarter of an acre homestead was all that we had. And there's a lot of books and content out there about how you don't need that much land to learn how to farm. In fact, there's one really popular book called Quarter Acre Homestead. So, getting a lot out of a little space is what we set out to learn how to do. And here, we own a few plots of land that came with the purchase of this house. But really, leasing land is we're surrounded by abandoned farmland and abandoned fields and forest land. So while we want to continue our focus on making the most out of the space that you have. Land here is really not an issue. So that's an interesting difference between Louisiana and Japan, is that here on this island, in this area, there's a lot of land available for lease and or purchase. Do you have anything to add to comparing our house in Louisiana and here?
No.
Okay. All right. And she had one more question before we jump over back to YouTube questions. She said, have you engaged with Japanese healthcare service and how have you found it? So we have engaged with the Japanese healthcare service by paying for it. Free healthcare in Japan, but we're paying a lot of it. Because Evan has the business manager visa, and the way that it works is, I'll just say we have an ambulance going by, so Bosco might start singing any minute, so I apologize if we have...
Yeah, there's the healthcare system going by right now.
Yeah. Evan is an employee of Benton Homestead. Well, he's the owner of Benton Homestead and gets a salary.
Well, so I think you're just trying to say that the idea with the healthcare is the employee pays for part of it and the employer pays for part of it, and so that's a perk that the employee has, is most of it's covered by their employer. And since we're self-employed, we pay for the entire thing, and so it's super expensive.
But we haven't used it yet. So we're paying into it.
Well, I got an eye exam, and it was, I don't remember, it was very reasonable. I mean, it was cheap. It was like $20 to get an eye exam. So.
But we're paying monthly on top of that. So I don't really see the difference in how it is from the U.S. except for the cost of things, if you do have to pay out of pocket, seems to be significantly lower. Probably not Mexico prices. So when we moved to the U.S., when we moved from the U.S. to Mexico, we got a lot of lab work done, healthcare things that we couldn't afford in the U.S. And that was amazing. I think Mexico was about 1/10 of the price of the U.S. for most of the things that we were getting done there. And here I don't think it's quite that much lower, but I was talking with someone the other day and who's lived in Japan for a long time, and they said that An ambulance trip was only a few $100s instead of in the US where you can be paying thousands of dollars for that. So we don't have any real experience with it besides Evan's eye exam to compare prices, except that the monthly cost is pretty high.
Exorbitant.
Yeah.
And so my understanding though is that it's exorbitant for the two of us, but it would not go up if we were to have children, regardless of how many children we have. So we want to have
That's a good
children,
point, yeah.
and so at some point it'll be a very good deal, I think, for us what we're paying.
That's a good point.
And so my background is in massage therapy. So I worked for 12 years as a massage therapist in the United States. And so my perspective on this is going to be a lot different from most people. And this is where we're going to get into the controversial aspect of it that I want to just kind of skirt around. But I'm just going to say that my whole career at 12 years was just people coming to me and saying, doctors have failed me. What can you do? And so that was an incredibly eye-opening experience. I really honestly, like Scout's Honor, I didn't get into that field to be a rabble-rouser or a contrarian, but I had all these people come to me and saying that the medical system had failed them. And Danny's got her own stories with that we could get into.
I'm one of those people that never had health insurance because it never made sense for me with a lifelong chronic illness. I had Lyme disease from the time I was 7 years old, and so most of the treatments for that were never covered by insurance, so it never made sense for me. So actually moving to Japan is the first time in my adult life that I actually have health insurance. But that's not to say that I didn't check the rates every year and see if it made sense monetarily in the US, and it just never did.
Yeah. And so I don't think I'm going to ruffle anyone's feathers if I say that the United States healthcare system is overtly malicious. That's completely true. The best healthcare system we've seen was in Mexico, and maybe we'll talk about that in a future video, but I'm being pinched on my leg. So I'm just going to say one point, which is that one of my clients was a doctor. This is a story that you wouldn't hear unless you were working in, the medical or at least alternative medical field, was that she did her medical internship in Detroit, Michigan, and so she told me how many of her patients came from Canada to the United States for healthcare. So you hear that Canada has a better system than the United States, and yet the proof is in the pudding that they came to the United States for healthcare for some reason. So there's so many issues there. There's so many controversies, and that's a lot to talk about. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we've got questions bouncing to all different topics. So, Prodigal Inc. says, I'm looking to move to Japan as well. How do I go about finding the ideal location? That is a massive question, and we talk about that a lot, but it really, it depends on so many things. What is your ideal location? What kind of climate do you like? Are you looking for a place that has tourism? Are you looking for a major city? Are you looking for countryside? Are you looking for suburbs? Anything in between? Do you need train access? Do you not want train access? We could go on. And I guess that we feel like it was really beneficial that we decided to go for the startup business visa route. And this might be changing in the future. It might, Japan has announced that they might make it nationwide starting sometime as early as next year. But when we were doing all this research and the way that it is currently, the startup business visa is only in a few locations throughout Japan. So that really narrowed down our locations for us. And when we were in Mexico, Evan did a lot of work to take all of those startup visa locations and overlay our other requirements, which our personal requirements were a good place for bees, a mild climate with preferably no snow, and easy access within 1 hour of at least one, if not more, major cities for tourism. For because all of our businesses that we planned here could benefit from tourism, and our visa relies on the success of our business. So those were all important things to us. And I guess for you, it's just a matter of laying out, just writing on paper what are your requirements, and then starting to do some research based on that.
Yeah, and something I had to sell Danny on was just the idea that every part of Japan has something to offer, and I was really glad to find the startup visa program offered by Imabari City for the sole reason of using that as a criterion that we could narrow down our search, because I realized, yeah, we could spend 2 years just scouring Japan trying to find a place we liked, let alone find a house that we would like, and Danny was not comfortable with that, with the idea of just sort of like basically randomly finding a place, which was sort of what we did.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that we didn't come up with this list of criteria, which is what I would recommend too. Is just like come up with a list. I think come up with a list of your criteria, and then just kind of go down and see which locations tick those boxes.
Mm-hmm. Marcus says he didn't know that Line does the auto translate. Yeah, that's a pretty cool feature. I didn't know as well, but a friend of mine set up our chat, so it's like a little group chat. So it's me and her and a translation bot, and so it just sort of translates our whole conversation for each other.
Scott says, love watching all your content and renovations on these beautiful old homes. Would love to see more on getting the house up to current building standards, as it's interesting for cyclones and earthquakes.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about modernizing for building standards, and it doesn't seem to be as big of an issue as many folks on the internet seem to make it seem. First, I would say there was no updates required for our guest house to become licensed as a minpaku or as a ryokan. So we've gone through both of those license processes, and neither process required any sort of foundational updates for the house that was built in 1953. And my second comment to that would be, when we were looking at these houses, we had those same kinds of questions for our neighbors. And here are, just taking the wisdom of our Japanese neighbors who have lived here their entire lives. They said, well, we had some major storms back in this decade and this decade, some major earthquakes this time period. So if these houses were built prior to that and they're still standing, then they've sort of proven their sturdiness. So really it doesn't seem to be as big of an issue as one might think.
Yeah, and I mean that's a reason to buy an Akiya now that I think about it, because we're basically grandfathered in. I think if you were to build a new building, yeah, you'd have to conduct all sorts of surveys to get that
Mm-hmm.
construction going through. We have a friend in Tokyo who just got his engineer's license, so maybe we'll be able to. I want to build a basement under this house, and that's a crazy idea. But yeah, we're definitely gonna want to get some seismic mumbo jumbo in order to feel good about doing that. So if that happens, that would be a great video, I think.
To add to the translation conversation, Marcus says Ōmishima, which is a nearby city. We love Ōmishima. He says Ōmishima gets translated as railroad often because of the same kanji. And we actually went through an interesting process recently. We met a group of young people who were here on Ōmishima as part of a sort of a entrepreneurial business incubation class. They were all traveling to a few places around Japan together and working on their business ideas that they were planning to launch. And one of the young women had her business plan, is to help foreign people in Japan come up with their kanji names. And so she offered to do that for us. I haven't posted the pictures from that yet, but it's something I've been planning to do to help share her small business. She's planning to do it in person and eventually online as well. But basically, she took our names, and prior to the meeting, she came up with a list of a few interesting kanji options, and then said that we can sort of mix and match which kanji we wanted to go together to be our kanji names. And then she gave us a like a description of what those kanji mean, and how if you put them together they mean something different, and sort of paint a picture about who you are as a person. So that was an interesting process. And we've got 2 people saying that JA Sensei is a good app to learn Japanese, so I will check that out. I've not heard of that.
Is that through JA, like Japan Agriculture? That'd be funny, because they do everything else, so.
Yeah, Japan Ag is basically everywhere. JA is what they call it, so I'm not sure if it's affiliated with that or not. Juliet says, I wish Japan would allow ex-convicts to move there. I've not been arrested in over 20 years. I don't know anything about their regulations for that.
Yeah, that's a bummer though, Juliet. I mean, obviously you haven't you've been you haven't committed any crimes in 20 years, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a way for expungement. I'm not.
Yeah, probably not.
Neither of us have any sort of criminal background, so I'm not. I'm sorry that I don't have any experience or advice in that area at all. Epiphany London says, recently I've heard the U.S. medical system referred to as predatory. Yeah, I think we would both agree with that.
And it's just, and we're not going to talk about this stuff, but it's not just the U.S., right? That's what I want to. There's a lot of dark stuff going on.
Prodigal Inc. says, thanks for the insight. Feels like I have a lot to consider. I was in Ōmishima early November and heading back to Kansai area in February again, hoping to scout out some more locations. Well, if you're in Ōmishima again, feel free to say hi. We're only about a 30-minute drive or maybe an hour on the bus from there. And when we go, when we go off island to go to some of the bigger stores or to get supplies or buy things in bulk or anything like that, we usually head north to Ōmishima. We're right in the middle of our island chain, so we have the option. It's about the same time distance to go to Ōmishima as it is to go south to Imabari City, and we like both, but we prefer Ōmishima. Ōmishima rocks. Yes, it does. Everybody loves Ōmishima. What's not to love? Prodigal Inc. says, I did the Shimanami on moped all the way to Imabari. I should have checked out Benton Homestead. Yes, we would have been happy to say hi. And that's cool also on moped. I definitely want to get a motorcycle, and I had a motorcycle endorsement in the U.S. I've always ridden motorcycles. And it's cool. Many people might not know that the bicycle path that goes all the way from Ōmishima to Imabari, it's a bike path, but it also allows for scooters up to 125cc. So you can ride those on the bicycle path, I believe for free. The bridges, if you're driving them in vehicles or motorcycles larger than 125cc, there's a fee to use the bridges. But bicycles and small scooters are allowed on the bike paths currently for free. So that would be a great way for us to travel if we both invested in some small motorcycles. I'd like to get a 110, which is what I learned on as a kid. And it might not be that long before it paid for itself if we took some scooter trips.
Scoot.
Yeah. Let's see.
Sharon
then you guys are just chatting. Oh, Sharon, hi Sharon, all the way from Louisiana. We just joined. Good to see y'all. Hope you guys are doing good. So Sharon and Joe from Louisiana are also watching. I think that brings us up to all our current questions. Anything else we can answer right now? Oh, we got a new one. Hi from Canada. I do not have any questions, but want to show some support. Hi, Alicia in Canada.
Thanks, Alicia.
Nice to meet you. So let's see. Evan, you've got some peppers over there. You want to talk about those?
Sure. You guys want to see my peppers? I brought some peppers for show and tell. These are my Tabascos, and yeah, I just got them on salt. We were making we were doing fermentation back in the States, so I know how that works, and all I'm doing here is just dumping salt on them, which is working to keep any bad guys from growing. And what do you think?
Oh, smells great.
Smells like Tabasco, great. To be honest. I mean, we went to the Tabasco factory in Avery Island, Louisiana, and that's a super cool experience. I don't even really like Tabasco. I mean, I do, but I deeply respect the Tabasco process, having gone there, and the whole thing is built on a salt dome, which means it's in the middle of a swamp, so it's not properly an island, but it's a big raised land, and it was one of the targets of the hostilities during the Civil War. Actually, was securing Avery Island salt mine, because it was such an important factor economically for the South. So they're growing all their own peppers that they breed, and they McElhenney, brought them back from some mysterious origin in Mexico, presumably Tabasco, Mexico, and they've been breeding them ever since, and all the salt comes from their own mines. And
they actually shut the mine down a few years ago. They flooded it with seawater. They said they'd mined so much of the salt out of Avery Island that in order to, I think they said it was in order to retain the safety of the island, because everything is built on top of the salt mine. So they have stopped just a few years ago. It was the longest operating salt mine in the United States, if not bigger. I don't want to say incorrect facts about Avery Island, but I did read just a few years ago they flooded it with salt water, and they're no longer mining the Tabasco salt from there anymore.
Yeah. Well, we just got a super chat from Terry. Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, Terry, thank you. $20. That's really, really generous of you. Thanks so much, Terry. Do you guys plan on getting cherry blossom honey? That is a fabulous question. Evan, you can handle that one.
Yeah, I don't know if you've had cherry blossom honey, but it is delicious, and so as we get into the honey deal, I mean, beekeeping is a lot different in Japan than it was in the United States for a lot of different reasons. So that's another huge topic. But we're finding that monofloral honey is really where our business is going to go, and that's primarily just because there's not a lot of honey here except for citrus. So we're getting our entire output so far has just been the one citrus harvest that we had. And I guess in terms of numbers, there's a harvest after that that's just going to be mixed flowers. But prior to that, yeah, they actually get a sakura blossom harvest, and so we're looking forward to that.
Our local beekeeping mentor on the island, who's really taken us under his wing, and he said his goal with helping us is he really wants us to learn how to do things the way that he has done it. He's a multi-generational, we know his dad was a beekeeper. We don't know if it dates back further than his father, but he's at least second generation beekeeper on Ōmishima Island. Super nice guy, just really, really amazing guy. And so he gave Evan the design for the giant hornet traps, and he comes and checks on us every once in a while, and we do hive inspections with him. So he has talked to us recently. The last time we met with him, he was talking about his process for getting the cherry blossom honey, which is apparently there is a special process to it because the cherry blossoms happen so early in the springtime. And maybe you can explain it a little bit better.
Yeah, well, it's just when you usually when you there's a lot of different opinions about beekeeping, but it's common for beekeepers to feed the bees right at the very as soon as your last frost danger. They're gonna give the bees some sugar, and they think that gets them going sooner. It helps them to start laying eggs and get the colony numbers up. And so, just with anytime you want to collect honey, you want to make sure that sugar is not getting into it.
So you feed the bees sugar water, and then they take that and eat it, but they also might store some in the hives. And you just want to make sure that you're never harvesting that sugar water and mixing it with your honey. So there's some precautions.
So you just have to look visibly and watch when the trees are blooming, and when they start blooming, you're going to pull those frames out of the hive and put them into storage to make sure that there's none of that is getting into the cherry into the honey.
Oh,
there's Bosco.
sorry, there's Bosco.
And so I'm looking at ways to strengthen our business model without getting too lost in the weeds with all the silly ideas that I have. And one of those is I want to plant cherry blossom hedges, and I actually have just bought a bunch of wild cherry seeds that are in the refrigerator stratifying right now. And so we plan to do sheep pretty soon. And one of the reasons that we want to do sheep is because the citrus have require a lot of weed whacking underneath them, and the sheep would take care of that.
So we don't grow citrus, but we've talked to Ōmishima is known for citrus. So the island is just covered in hundreds of different citrus varieties, and we've talked with a few farmers, and they say one of the most time-consuming aspects of being a citrus farmer is weed whacking around the trees, and a sheep could take care of that. And
then also because we have such a wild boar problem here in Japan in general, all of these citrus orchards are fenced off already.
They already have the fences in place around each individual orchard. So we've done a lot of research and planning regarding regenerative grazing, which means that you don't just leave your chickens or your livestock if we get to the point of having sheep. That would probably be our only livestock. We'll see how far into the homesteading we get. But instead of just leaving them in one pasture, you take them around to different pastures, and so that way there's many reasons that that's a good idea, both for the animals and for the land as well. So if anyone's interested in that, it's called regenerative grazing. There's tons and tons of information about that online. But the reason that it would work for us is that these citrus groves already have the boar fences in place, and so it would be a mutually beneficial relationship with some of the island farmers if we could take our sheep every few days or whatever length of time we work out is best for the field, and just have a schedule of places that we rotate them.
And then back to the cherry blossom, what I want to do is replace those fences with a English style hedgerow, which is a special technique called hedge laying that's sort of coming back into the forefront. And yeah, you can make a hedge out of planting trees very close together, and that will keep livestock in or out.
I'm going to jump down to one of the newest question before we go back to one of the oldest because it's related. Scott says, hornet traps, definitely need to watch that video as we have native bees. Never seen anything about it. So are you in Japan also and you have Japanese bees? Is that what you're saying? So we have a massive giant hornet problem here. I don't know if it's worse here than other parts of Japan. I follow a few other Japanese beekeepers on Instagram and YouTube, and some of them have European bees, some of them have the native Japanese
He's
bees.
Australian, so he means this. You mean the stingless bees, right?
Oh.
There's no giant hornets in Australia yet.
Okay. So the Asian giant hornet. We have numerous sizes and colors of hornets here on the island, but the Asian giant hornet is the monster that we have to deal with here. And of course, we didn't have that when we were beekeeping back in Louisiana, and thankfully, you don't have to deal with that in Australia. They are massive. They're the size of a dragonfly, and their goal is to exterminate an entire beehive because they don't just eat the bees. They don't eat the bees at all. They eat the larvae, they eat the babies. So, a swarm or a group of Asian giant hornets can kill an entire bee colony in probably a matter of hours, less than a day. So sometimes we would go to the bee yard and we would see, a bunch of little honeybee bodies outside the beehives. And fortunately, the traps keep the hornets from actually going inside and doing what they want to do, which is to barge in, kill every bee inside, steal the larva, and take it back to their hornet babies. But the traps don't stop them from sort of perching on the outside of the hive and killing some of the outside bees as they go in and out of the entrance. So it's an ongoing challenge that we're figuring out. About halfway through the season or a little more, Evan did learn, we talked to our honeybee mentor, and we've got the traps on the colonies. Evan goes out every single morning with a badminton racket and physically swats every hornet that is out at the field. And he said some days there would be one or two, some days there would be up to 20. And the way the hornets work is that in the morning they send out their scout bees, and if the scout bee reports back to the hornet colony that they found a hive, then they send massive numbers out to the bee yard. So he would go out every morning and physically whap with a badminton racket all of the scout hornets. Then halfway through the season, he set out glue traps on top, and that actually worked way better than we thought. It's sort of my fault that we didn't do that earlier. I was worried about the glue traps catching other things because there's butterflies and dragonflies and praying mantis and all kinds of really nice things out around the bee yard, and I didn't want to catch anything like that in the glue traps. And our neighbor did catch a bird in her glue trap that she had to wash off. Evan helped her with that, and they successfully released the bird. But that was my fear with the glue traps. But in our experience, it worked incredibly well. So the giant hornet trap, which is actually put on the front of each individual beehive, combined with the glue traps, really helped keep the hornet population down. So we've got some more tools in our toolbox for next hornet season. We have problems with wasps getting into hives. Yes, stingless bees. Interesting. I haven't heard about wasps getting into beehives. I'd be interested, I'm sure we'd both be interested in hearing what the problem is and what you do to deal with it. Our wasps get inside hive and lay their larva that eats the hive out from the inside. Big pest.
Gnarly.
Wow. Yeah, so you've got your own issue to deal with. Thankfully we don't have that, but we've got the big giant hornets.
There's a lot of stingless bee species that have been kept not quite on a commercial scale, but by indigenous peoples throughout the world. And in Mexico
too,
right?
They
call them meliponas. We saw a lot of them, and they're super cool. I would love to get into those. They're looking into using them to pollinate greenhouse crops, So one of the crops on the island that they would use those for would be strawberries.
Oh, the strawberries.
And
They use the stingless bees for that?
well, they're researching it. Japanese scientists are researching it.
Cool. Now we've got another super chat here. Matt, thank you so much. $10. That's really generous of you. Thank you. He says, hey guys, what's a rough estimate of a startup beekeeping setup in Japan? Would you recommend it? If so, any tips? We could literally talk about this all day long. We've been talking about bees for a while, so let's thoroughly answer this question and then we'll go on to a couple others. But you can give some estimated costs of the hives.
Matt, yeah, thanks so much. Are you in Japan? And if so, there's we bought our stuff from Mamuro, and another one is Akitaya Yoho. Those are just two websites that we got our equipment from. And our bees we got from a local guy, and that's what I would recommend because that's going to be way cheaper. We spent 15,000 yen per hive, per colony, and so that's way cheaper.
Which is approximately, depending on what exchange rate you're looking at.
Okay, he's working on getting to Japan. So
working on getting to Japan.
Yeah,
okay.
well, come to Ōmishima if you want. We have definitely room for more beekeepers here.
Yeah. the Ōmishima Island Beekeeping Committee is still fairly small, but okay, costs.
So
15,000 yen per hive is approximately what?
$100.
$100. So we're looking at approximately $100 if you want to buy each individual hive box. They come dismantled, and of course you have to paint and assemble them yourself. And then.
So can I just do that? Yeah. So it was 7,000 yen for a finished single brood box that comes with. There's no bottom board. It's included. It's built into the entrance is built into the box itself. So it's just a flat board underneath, but it also comes with the lid. And I don't know. You could probably get a kit that comes with all the frames too, but frames were about 200 yen each, or 300 yen with foundation.
And those came in boxes of 100, right?
Those came in boxes of 100, but if you could probably get just a kit if you only wanted a single. I would recommend. I don't know how much experience you have with beekeeping, but I would recommend getting started with at least 2 or 3 hives, because basically you can take, if one of them is weak, you can take a frame of bees from one hive and put it into that one to strengthen them. So
also, if one loses a queen, sometimes you can take the queen cells from one hive and put it in another one. So if you start with only one hive, you're at risk of, if something bad happens, you might not have the resources to be able to help the bees overcome that. But if you start with 2 or 3 hives, then you can use your strongest hive to help your weaker hives.
Yeah. So, but I guess that would be like 25,000 yen just for the box and the bees itself per colony. And then on top of that, a veil, a hive tool, gloves, smoker. That's gonna be 20,000 yen. I would buy a good smoker for sure. We didn't have a good experience with our first one, and
yeah, we bought a cheap smoker trying to save money, and it would go out all the time. So that lasted us a little over a year before we got so frustrated that then we bought a more expensive smoker. So definitely get the quality gear to start with, and then you'll probably never have to rebuy the gear.
Yeah, and Daedont is an American brand, and you can buy that through Akitaya. So yeah, 20,000 yen plus 25,000 per hive, I would say, to get started. So.
Then what did we pay for the? Now, of course, the buying your bees from a local beekeeper is going to be different based on who you're buying it from. But what did we pay for a colony of bees to start with?
Yeah, I mentioned that already. 15,000. Okay. 15,000 yen. Okay. Which is like $100, which is super cheap because I think we spent $250 on our hive originally, our first colony in the United States. So, but if you were to buy online, I think the ones I saw online were about that $250. So you can definitely get started in beekeeping without any local connections, but I would highly recommend, you know, especially if you don't live in Japan yet, definitely reach out to people where you're planning on moving. That's actually what we did. Uh oh.
What?
Okay, it wasn't connected on the computer for a second. I was watching. Yeah, so we actually connected with our sensei before we got here, and it took a while for him to get back to us, but once he did, he's just been incredibly helpful. Um, and in Japan is a lot different culture than the United States or the West, I would say, in terms of competition and marketing too, where people are very there's strength in numbers here, and people are happy to have you in the same field working as them. They're happy to sort of learn from you and cooperate, like co-opetition kind of an idea. And then with the marketing, with your product, uh, there's this idea that in Japan there's a really strong sense of each place has something it's known for. So Ōmishima, Ehime Prefecture is known for citrus, and Ōmishima is as being part of Ehime Prefecture is known for citrus, and so more and more it's getting known for honey as well, citrus honey. You know, so that's you get together and it's a change in mindset for sure, and you might find yourself in a rural area where that's not the case, but um, yeah. Another thing is just to finish that up. One cost that you have to figure on. Well, there's hornet traps. I didn't mention that. And of course, I built the hornet traps. I built the feeders, which you're gonna need, and those would be like 4,000 yen each. I think 4,000 yen for a hornet trap, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 for a feeder. But I ended up buying a table saw, which was 20,000 yen. It's a super cheap one, and that's hard to find in Japan. But I mean that's paid for itself already in terms of our costs just for building those feeders.
Yeah, so this winter, we plan to expand our colonies next spring. And then each year for the next few years, we plan to continue expanding. So we bought the woodworking tools, and there's probably a few more things we need to invest in. And then that's going to allow Evan to build our own honeybee boxes. Here in this area, we've got some sources for wood to reuse. There's one of our neighbors has a barn just full of wood that he's not going to use. He said we can use whatever we want for bee boxes, but that means investing in some tools in order to be able to use those, but it will actually save us money in the long run than purchasing the box kits every time we want to expand.
Yeah, and so you're probably, if you're just getting started, you're probably just going to buy the boxes pre-made, but
Yeah,
long
nothing wrong with
term,
that. Yeah.
that's what we did. Long term, you're going to want to be constructing your own stuff to save costs. Our mentor is the only guy on the island who actually makes his own beekeeping equipment. So there's not as strong a DIY sort of ethic here, but obviously that's what you're going to do. And then just something to be aware of is we bought the kits, so they're not pre-assembled to save money. So I said 7,000 yen for a pre-assembled one, and so it was like 5,000 yen or maybe less for a kit. But those come in packs of 3 for the brood boxes, and then packs of 5 for the supers where the honey goes. So do the math there. You're going to end up with 15 being the smallest number you're going to be able to buy. That's going to that's going to match up.
Yeah. We could talk about bees all day, though. So let's jump over to one other. Skinny Doze says, "Hi guys, late August we did a drive-by the Airbnb and Ryokan. Didn't want to butt in. We are looking at retiring. Any other work around other than the business visa? Never a bother. It wouldn't have, we meet people all the time who reach out to us on either YouTube or Instagram, and they say they're going to be in the area and want to meet for dinner. I'm losing track of how many people that we've already met that way who just reach out to us on their bike trip or they're passing through the area. So we're always happy to chat. It's never a bother at all. But as far as a workaround for the business visa, that's another question that I'm getting a lot. And I've asked our immigration lawyer a couple of times for other options. A lot of people are asking for like a retirement visa. Is there any sort of visa if they've got a massive savings account, or like how do people move here and not have a business, not teach English, not marry a Japanese person, and not work for a Japanese mega corporation? That's like everybody's question. And I don't know, honestly. So our immigration lawyer just said, well, so I wrote to him with some questions about a couple's very specific situation, and they were looking for a retirement visa, and he said basically he's unaware of there is no visa like that. There is no retirement visa. There's no visa based on the amount of money that you have saved. But Cheap Houses Japan recently did a blog post about retiring in Japan that I can't remember all the details, but he did have some good ideas, and one of the ideas included the startup visa, so he linked to a couple of our videos in his blog. But he did have some general ideas, and there's also some companies like we've spoken with the man who runs Japan remotely a few times. He's a real nice guy. Also, the Cheap Houses Japan guy is super nice too. So there are some companies like Japan remotely who will sort of hold your hand through the whole process, connect you with an immigration lawyer, and come up with an action plan for you based on your specific situation. So we're not experts. We know the startup visa to the business manager visa based on our specific personal experience. And other than that, we rely on the experts to answer these kinds of questions. So a lot of immigration lawyers will do a free consultation, and you can ask them questions for 30 minutes or an hour, and then they can sort of determine, well, based on your situation, is there a visa track for you? So that would definitely be my recommendation for where to start. Our immigration lawyer is fantastic. I recommend him to everybody. He said he's been contacted by a lot of people who have said that we've sent them to him. His name is Shimizu-san, and he is with Japan Immigration Experts. I think that's his website address as well. So Japan Immigration Experts, Shimizu-san. That's who we've been working with. And he's actually based in Fukuoka. So we've never met him in person. He's the one person on the team of professionals that we've been working with that we've never met in person, because he's dealing with the national immigration, so he doesn't need to be familiar with like local Ehime prefecture rules or anything like that. So we've done all of our communication, and all of our visa renewals have been done over video chat and email. So pretty good to know, and I definitely recommend him for answering any of your visa questions. Let's see.
Prodigal Inc. says, will you guys expand to additional homesteads if it's feasible? I'm assuming you mean just fields or farmland?
Or guest houses.
Or guest houses?
Yeah.
We just had to do we're applying for a subsidy to do some extra work on the guest house. We found out that it's something that's only available your first year of being a business, so we decided to jump on that. And so in order to do that, we had to, with our business consultant, we had to put together a 10-year
business plan.
Which was just sort of, something I had not thought about.
It's a lot. Can you imagine 10 years in the future, what do you want to be doing with your business?
And again, like, we just want to be like a mom and pop off-grid, homestead kind of a life, and we're sort of being, I don't know, we're sort of being encouraged to be like a bigger a bigger company, you know, like with employees and things. So that was one of the things. Is yeah, I think 2009, sorry, 2029, we're supposed to hire our first employee to help us clean our second guest house. That's
Yeah, so generally, like, so with a business plan, you know, they want to see business growth, they want to see your plans for the future. Um, you know, and we're just wrapping year one. So it's only a few months ago we finished our first fiscal year with our corporation, Benton Homestead, in Japan. So we're still a very young business. We still have many plans for just, you know, framework, ground level stuff. We want to get our retro shop going, which requires the guest house garage full remodel. We're still only on phase one remodel of our guest house, and we have phase two and then a possible phase three planned to just make it really, really cool. Phase two is hopefully going to happen this winter. That's where the subsidy comes into place. So hopefully that's going to help offset some of the costs, because we know we need to fully restore the bathtub. We're currently shower only, and of course everybody wants that, you know, Japanese bathtub experience. And then we also want to add a second toilet, and then just a few more cosmetic things around the house at the guest house that's really just going to make it that much better. So right now we've been operating in what we call phase one, and it's perfectly acceptable, but we've got plans for the future. So, and then of course the honeybee is we're still in the very beginning stages of the honeybee farm as well, and that is going to expand every year as bees naturally split every year. So we've got a lot of like framework things that we still need to put into place. But when we sat down and thought about 10 years into the future, we thought, well, you know, maybe in a couple of years, once some of this groundwork stuff is done, we might have the time and the interest to add a second guest house at some point. If we were to find the perfect abandoned house in our neighborhood, nice and close, keep our business cozy and close to home, that would be cool. We would probably in 5 years' time be open to something like that. So that's part of our 10-year business plan, is potentially adding a second guest house if the stars align perfectly. And at that time, they encouraged us to put into the business plan that, well, we would probably need to hire some employees at that point, either to help Evan with the beekeeping or to take over, you know, the cleaning and of the guest house. So, you know, 10 years into the future, even 5 years into the future, is a really long time to think about. But that's sort of what's in our business plan as far as expanding. I think that answers the question.
yeah.
Does that answer the question? I guess we've got the chat, so you can tell me if you have any more questions about that. We've got some new...
Matsukawa Zaraki.
Hello from Florida. Nice to see you guys. How's everything going? We'll have to catch up on some of your videos. I think I've seen that you've posted a few recently. Yeah, 10 years. It is wild to think about 10 years into the future. Skinny Does says, I saw your Ryokan on cheap houses and put it on a short list. Yeah, we found this Ryokan in 2021 before we even left the US. This is part of the reason that Ōmishima was on our radar, is that Evan fell in love with this house back in the US. So the whole time that we were traveling Mexico, working on Japanese visas, and waiting for Japan's borders to open, this house was still on the market when we arrived in Ōmishima and came to look at it. So pretty incredible. I think just the sheer size and the amount of stuff in the house really just is a considered a con to some people. It's like a turnoff for people looking for houses if they think that they have to deal with all the stuff. And I think it takes the right person to deal with this amount of stuff. But we're very happy that the house was still available. So you're welcome to come visit. Come check it out sometime. So,
Still young enough.
still young enough. May Airbnb and coffee shop. Sounds great.
Yeah, coffee shops are not. We could really use a coffee shop on the island. The earliest place for breakfast opens at like 11, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's
you do
definitely
real good here.
a late
and
morning thing. If you wanted to do an early coffee shop, that's a fantastic idea.
And I think all the guest house operators would be very happy to have some more restaurants.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's one of the things, so we have the Ryokan license, which is basically just a hotel license. The traditional ryokans on the island have meals available for the guests in the restaurant, and they're operated more like a traditional ryokan, whereas we've chosen to not offer food for the guests. So we send people to the local restaurants, and we help them make reservations at the restaurants, and just help send some more business out into the community. But being that we're in a rural area, a lot of the restaurants are tourism based, so there's multiple days a week, and especially weekdays, where many of the restaurants are closed. So there's definitely, even though Ōmishima is becoming like a favorite stopover halfway through the Shimanami Kaido, there's definitely still a place for new restaurants to come in and not really step on other people's toes. So a need for restaurants, especially if you're going to be open more than just the weekend.
Well, I mean, there's still. I just would clarify that a little bit. There's still plenty of space for guest houses, and there is a pressing need for restaurants and cafes and things like that. We could really use some more restaurants and just more stuff to do on the island. Would just, it's a place where the scenery is so beautiful. There's beaches and mountains and farmland and whatnot, and people just love to come and ride their bikes here and see the shrine. And if you just could sprinkle in a few amenities along that path, you could really you would really elevate the offerings here to the next level.
Yeah, for sure. Boy, we're at 9:30 already, so we've been talking for 90 minutes. Thanks for keeping the questions coming, guys. It's still, a little nerve-wracking being in front of the camera and all that, personally, but you guys are making it easy by giving us conversation topics and things that you're specifically interested in talking about.
I'm fine.
You're fine.
I could do this all day.
Of course you are, yeah. You do this all day. So Aussie Accent Listening says, it sounds like a mobile coffee cart would be a good prospective little business.
Oh, yeah.
For sure, and that's probably true for most areas in Japan. Coffee, for some reason, Japan and Mexico too, open super late. Like, would we blow people's minds to know that coffee shops in the U.S. open at 5 a.m.?
Mexico was that way too. We were leaving Cholula. Not even super early. We were at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and gosh, I was walking around for like an hour trying to find a place that was open for coffee. It was ridiculous. So
yeah, coffee shops are more of like a late morning treat here, I guess. But we do have the Family Mart and the Lawson on the island, so we do have some 24-hour convenience stores.
Yeah, and people go to Lawson for coffee, right? So
yeah, there's the little sitting area, and it seems to be that those are like the coffee shop hubs where people go get their coffee and sit and hang out if needed. So the convenience stores are sort of filling the niche need for the coffee shops, but there's definitely room for like an actual early morning coffee shop.
Yeah, and the word there is kitchen car. Just so you know, that's what Japanese people. That's the Japanese English or English Japanese word for a food cart. But what you do is you get a source for your coffee beans. If you're in Australia, I think they grow coffee in northern Australia, right? Or you get a source and you import them into Japan, and then you roast them yourself, and then the coffee kitchen car would be your just sort of brick and mortar, as it were, location, and then you're doing online sales to businesses and to people, and yeah, Bob's your nephew.
Matsukawa says early morning breakfast nut place would be popular. Yeah, for sure. Early morning breakfast, coffee, and Marcus says vending machines for the win. Yeah. I mean, really, I do tell our guests, like, just a few houses down, our neighbors have a little corner market, and the corner market closes at 6 p.m., but they've got a row of vending machines out front, so you can get hot coffee, cold coffee, sodas, beer, and sake from the vending machines 24 hours a day. So I guess in the rural areas, that's sort of how they do it.
Tattoo question.
Tattoo question. Duke 1972 says, "Hi, I am also having too many tattoos, and I always consider if I launch a business as a coffee shop would affect the Japanese customers. I read different opinions on the web." Yeah,
I think it would be a plus, honestly. I mean, you have to figure out how to market yourself, and I mean,
I wouldn't say it's a plus. I would say
it could be a plus. It could be a plus, I think, if you market yourself a certain way.
Maybe. Yeah, so I don't have any experience in the big cities. A lot of people who come to Japan with tattoos come here as tourists, and of course, you know, you're primarily going to be in the big cities. And so I've read online, you know, people can't go into certain onsens or public pools or public beaches with tattoos. I have not had that experience because I don't live in the city. So our area is
Yakuza coffee.
tattoo friendly. Who said that, Marcus? No. Oh, yeah. So I have tattoos. I can't hide them even with a collared shirt. You can still see them, and it has not been an issue. However, I take a little bit of precautions, you know, so I definitely try to present myself if I'm meeting someone or a business person, or if we're in any sort of professional setting. I, you know, am aware that my tattoos could come across negatively. They may have some sort of, you know, ideas about tattoos that they don't like. So I just try to be, present myself just even more professionally than I may otherwise in that sort of setting. But never had a negative comment about my tattoos, and have had a few positive comments. And the only people who mention my tattoos are non-Japanese people online. So I think that might be able to tell you something, that it's sort of, it seems to be like social media and YouTube is sort of like an echo chamber. So if somebody says, well, this person said that all Japanese people hate tattoos, then they just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, and it may or may not be true. I only have my personal experience, and my personal experience is that it's not an issue. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I don't have any tattoos, but I lived in Japan in 2006, and I tried to come back in 2011 to be an English teacher, and I got the job, and then I did not. It was an ALT position, which means it was like a subcontractor that would farm me out to a local school district, and I got the job through the company, but they said that they showed my profile to the various prospective school districts, and none of them wanted me. And I asked why, because they didn't tell me at first, and they said because you have a beard. So that was 2011, and recently I've been looking around and realizing that, like, boy, that would not happen today, you know? So that's just interesting. I've been in Japan long enough that I've seen a lot of changes like that, and I don't think you'd have trouble. But again, like, look up what a kisaten looks like a traditional coffee shop in Japan, and you're not going to be doing that. But you could, too, you know? But anyway, it's just how you market yourself, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
It becomes like a cultural thing, like, you know, like wearing a sombrero. You know, you could do a stereotypical Mexican coffee shop. You could, you know, it would be something like that. But
Yeah, I think it's seen as a curiosity more than anything. If it's perceived in, any, if they have any sort of preconceived notion, it's like, well, it's a curiosity. It's part of the foreign culture. So it seems like an interest more than a negative thing. Um, well, we've got a little bit of time left.
well, we got some more questions about the coffee shop thing.
Okay.
Marcus says breakfast place that opens before 10 would be great, especially for tourists. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, if you're in the bigger city, it's been so long since I've been in a big city in Japan. I don't think a big city you have any problem finding a coffee shop. But a smaller town, yeah. And then he says there's Yakuza ramen places because once you is that charged with being Yakuza or being like being found guilty of being in a antisocial activity, probably the latter, and that's pretty interesting. So if you're found to be a Yakuza member in court, you can't get a job. So that's wild, but
I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
you can come work for Benton Homestead, Yakuza.
We're not Yakuza.
We're not, but
No.
I can't say that.
You can't say
You can
that.
come and whack bad.
No.
You can come and whack hornets.
Oh, okay. How is the integration of Japanese honeybees into your setup going? That's ongoing. It's going to be something more for next year. So we do have the hive box in place, and we've set some bait into the hive box to try and encourage them to move in, which has not worked yet. Our neighbor up the hill, though, she wants to do Japanese bees, and she set out a bait hive, and she caught some Japanese bees very recently. So we're going to be learning alongside her. She said she's been researching as well, so it's not like she needs our help, but she said that we can learn with her while she learns on her first Japanese beehive as well. So that's pretty cool that because our honeybee mentor doesn't do Japanese bees. He said he would consider it if we're successful with Japanese bees. He might be interested in learning down the road. So it's a matter of just sort of learning as we go and then sharing that with others. Little by little. Yep, that's bochi bochi. It seems like everything is little by little. And Duke says, thanks a lot to both of you. So yeah, always happy to answer questions. Thanks for making it easy, guys, and giving us stuff to talk about. Wow, we've got 17 people watching. That's a lot. I don't remember what we had last time, but yeah.
Let us know in the chat how many did we have last time.
No. All right. Well, our last little bit of time. Oh, I want to show you guys this. I set this out. We do want to look at some antiques here, right? So these might be going to our neighbor's new restaurant. So they're not going to be for sale. But just a cool little serendipitous story. We've got a house full of these antiques, and I'm really, really happy that we may have found a home. I've got a small army of these, and I didn't know what they were at first. We just had about 30 of them. So it's a ceramic little pedestal here. Each one has a little round piece of wood inside, and this metal item that goes inside here, and it looks like it holds a candle or something like that. I didn't really know what they were, but we had 30 of them, so I set them aside. And we went to a dinner at our friend's house, and she used something, a more modern one of the version of this, and it was used for cooking rice at the table. Right? It was rice?
Rice.
Yeah. And so I said, hey, I've got a bunch of those from our Ryokan because they had events and dinners here. And she looked at them and she loved the retro style, but she said, you gotta find the top piece for it. So figured in all these boxes we had to find the top piece, and I found a whole box of these. Also seems to be about 30 of them, and they had some I don't know if you can tell on the video, but it looks like it's been on an open flame on the bottom just a little bit. And I sent her the photo and she said, bingo! She said that's exactly it, that's what you've been looking for.
Ping pong.
So I spent a couple weeks looking through boxes, and you can see it's got a little hole in the lid here, so for cooking rice, that's how the steam escapes.
Well, you could cook, this is just called a donabe, which means earthenware pot, and you could cook rice, but you can cook anything in there.
Yeah. So it's a little flame cooker underneath, and then this goes on top. And she hasn't come to take a look at them in person yet, but I sent her photos, and she says she loves the retro style. So I just think I'm just overjoyed that something from our house in a massive quantity is going to be used at a new restaurant opening in the neighborhood, which is also taking place in a formerly abandoned house. So she renovated an Akiya into a restaurant, and it's going to be her house, and now some dishes from our Akiya are probably going to be in her restaurant. So I just think that's super cool. I'm just thrilled with this. I hope she likes them in person as much as she does in the photos. We're going to set a date soon for her to come shopping in our house, so she gets first dibs on any of these dish sets that we've been working on matching up. I've got I set these aside here, so I've been working on organizing all these dishes, and some of them are like full box sets, so I'm just pulling out like one dish from each box, so I know.
So you have an entire box of these.
I have an entire box of those. Then I have an entire box of these, and they have this cute little lid. So this is like it's like a, not for cooking, but it's just a ceramic dish with a lid like that. I've got a whole box of these.
We have a question. Sketsville. How much people outside of Japan would be interested in something like that? Is there a lot of requests? Please clarify. What do you mean?
Something like what? You
Yes.
mean the dishes?
Anyway, we'll let him clarify his question, and we'll get to it.
Okay.
So-
There's a question before too from Matsukawa.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that, but
Was it expensive this time for the visa renewal compared to the initial application? It was about the same.
but when we did the initial application, we also had to get our business incorporation, so that was significantly more. But for the
actual costs of the immigration lawyer's time and submitting the application, it was about the same. I think it's varied by $100 or $200 each time. So, oh gosh, I'm really bad with numbers.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the wrong thing.
just don't say it was around $1,000.
It was around $1,000, but the first time it was a few $100 higher. The second time it was about $100 less, and this time it was about $100 more. So there was some variance to it. I'm sure it's based on the time that it takes for him to collect all the documents.
Yeah, no need for specifics, he says. And Debbie asks, with Shimizu-san? Yes,
Yes.
with Shimizu-san.
Yes, Shimizu-san has helped us with the initial application and each extension.
And then Sketsville says, yeah, he's talking about the dishes and the older Japanese items.
Yeah, okay, so your question is
there interest
outside of Japan? I think there's more interest outside of Japan than within Japan. And I'll tell you just very briefly, is because people in Japan, most likely, their grandparents' house is like this, filled with dishes. Not to this extent. Our house was a restaurant and an inn. But everyone's house on the island that we've been in who is an older person, their kitchen is full and full of dishes. And who knows, maybe it's from their grandparents and it's been handed down. And, you know, it seems like everyone is prepared for the possibility of having 18 people over for dinner and they all need little individual plates. So I feel like, and this is just my assumption based on feedback from people and our experience taking some of these dishes to the island flea market, more often than not, I'm going to say that the interest in the dishes is going to be higher outside of Japan because, you know, again, people in Japan just have access to this and they can probably go pick up whatever they need from their parents or their grandparents' house if they're interested in older things, which some of them are not. So I don't want to generalize too much. I don't like, you know, generalizing, but that seems to be the case. That so our online shop, when we do get that fully launched, I've only got a few listings up right now, and then with our recent reaching the YouTube monetization, I just found out that we can integrate our Shopify shop with our YouTube. So that's going to be something fun that I do in the near future. Is I'm going to be able to, if I have a Shopify listing and then I talk about something in the video, I can actually put a little button up in the corner so people can go directly from the video to the Shopify shop. So that won't just be for antiques, that'll be for honey as well, anything that we have in the shop. But I'm new to this, so I'm still just sort of figuring out how that works. But based on our experience and feedback and interest, people who are showing interest in the antiques seem to be from outside of Japan. So I feel like a lot of these dishes are going to find homes in the US or Canada or Australia or wherever outside of Japan, most likely. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's the only issue is shipping. Shipping's pretty expensive, so.
Shipping is pretty expensive. We really need to figure that out. We've shipped a few things. We sent some knives that needed repaired to one of my favorite high school teachers, who is now semi-retired. He does homesteading also, and apparently now he does knife repair as a hobby. So some of our Japanese knives that we found here have been shipped to Oregon to my former teacher, Mr. Fisher, and he that was sort of our first experience shipping, and it was not cheap. And when I was looking up shipping, it seemed that when everything shut down in 2020, it seems like a lot of the shipping prices changed. I read online that Japan used to have a cheap, middle, and expensive shipping option, and the middle option was done away with, and it has not come back yet. So that leaves us with the super cheap option, which is actually on a boat and takes a couple of months, and the expensive option, which is apparently the only option we have to ship from Japan to other countries now. So I think shipping a little box like this was like $40, $50. It was a lot. So I think the most interest for antiques is going to come from outside Japan, and then we just need to figure out shipping.
You know what I want to see is I want to see, you can go on these websites, you can find old boats, like freighters, big boats, like 200-foot boats, and they're, I would say, reasonable for what they are. A couple $100,000, and I want to see someone buy one of these boats and then just become a freighter guy going back and forth, and just do that on YouTube. Like the homesteading thing, but like seasteading kind of. Yeah, one of you 16 people who's watching should get on that.
Get a freighter and start.
Yeah, I mean we've got a house full of cool stuff. We'll pay you to, if you can do it cheaper.
Hi, new to your channel. Do you plan to stay in Japan for good? We hope so. Yeah, so right now we're on the business manager visa. We just got renewed for the second time, and there's a long process to getting permanent residency. We're nowhere near that process, but that is our end goal, is permanent residency, and then the big dream, of course, is citizenship. So we do want to stay here long term. Now, Japan does not allow dual citizenship, so part of our plan, when we first left the U.S., we went to Mexico and we were deciding between Mexico and Japan, and part of that plan from the beginning was to get residency in Mexico.
Temporary?
We have
Residency?
temporary residency for Mexico. It's the immigration process in Mexico is night and day. It's completely different than Japan. The process there is you receive permanent residency, and then after 4 years you file some paperwork. No, I'm sorry. You receive temporary residency, and after 4 years of having temporary residency, you complete some paperwork, and then you have permanent residency forever. And residency is obviously different than citizenship. So on the off chance that we ever do actually achieve citizenship in Japan, we would have to forfeit our United States citizenship, but we could keep our residency in Mexico. So that's one thing that we're actually working towards. But we would be very happy if at some point we would get permanent residency in Japan. That would be great as well. And then we would keep our U.S. citizenship. But there's some complicated things with that as far as taxes. So if it were up to us, dream goal would be citizenship, live in Japan forever, but we're at the very beginning of that process. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but
Okay, well,
we're getting towards the end here, and if we got any more super chats, that'd be really cool.
or just any other questions.
Any other questions?
Thanks for joining us, guys. We're really new to this. We don't know what we're doing with these live chats, but it seems like 16 of you are enjoying it right now. So thanks for joining us. Let us know if you are enjoying this kind of thing. I wouldn't want to do something like this more than once a month. I don't think we're that interesting or have that many questions to answer. But we're happy to do this once in a while if it's something that you guys like. So let us know if you've enjoyed chatting. Hopefully some of you are making connections and making friends in the comments, because everyone here watching obviously has some common interests, so it would be great to start connecting people in the chat section and just sort of build out our little network here. So hopefully y'all are networking in the chat, making friends, enjoying it. I don't know, did you have fun? I had fun.
Oh yeah.
Great way to spend the morning. And thankfully Bosco and Punkon weren't screaming at us the whole time, so they did their job as well too. Yeah, what do you think? Do you guys like this format once in a while? Should we plan to do this maybe seasonally? Maybe every 2 or 3 months, I think, might be a good time. Again, I don't think we would have enough questions to keep us busy for 2 hours every month or so. I think that would be way too frequent. Let's see. It's very informative. Been tempted in moving out to Japan, though still need to get more info on it all, so checking out your videos. Thanks, and if you have any specific questions, feel free to drop them in the comments under those videos. I try to answer our comments within a day or two, so I'm always happy to chat if you have any specific questions. And if I can, I'll point you in the right direction of some people who could help you even more than we can. And Aussie Accent Listening says, very enjoyable, thank you. And thank you guys for joining us. This was fun. Last time, our very first live stream was this summer, and we were up in the hot, sweaty attic. And so this one has actually been more enjoyable, being able to sit here, and we've got...
Yeah, I got heat stroke last time.
yeah, oh that's right. You did get heat stroke last time. Yeah, thanks guys. This one was way more comfortable. So, I think we'll plan to do this again in the future. Not sure exactly when, but Marcus says, see you soon. Yes, we'll see you guys soon-ish. Have a great day, or night, or wherever you are. Masked Man says, I envy this adventure y'all are on. Good job and enjoy it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
It's been fun talking to you again. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks Masked Man. Thanks Marcus. Thanks Aussie Accent Listening.